It seems if the transition between your 20s into your 30s are almost two completely different worlds. It's almost as if it's two separate people that have existed inside of one body. And here's the thing about me. I actually enjoyed my 20s. So if you're talking to somebody who enjoyed their 20s, who was able to go outside, be outside without the fear of death, you look at life now completely different. Now, due to my own decisions, I have more responsibility. It could be outside of being a parent, a husband, whatever you need it to be. All of these upgrades in my life are things I put on myself, but at the same time, at what cost? You see, in 2015, 16-ish, I was running the streets of Kern County, Bakersfield, and just enjoying my life. I was a student at CSUB, and I got the opportunity to just be whatever I authentically wanted to do at that very moment. Now, did I handle my bills? Of course. Like, I wasn't stupid, but I still had just enough smarts to get me through to the next month, which was all fine and dandy. Now, here's the thing. I had big dreams. It was the talk on camera. It was for me to talk about life and social discussions and dating and all those things, but I kind of did it at a pace that I thought was appropriate for me. Now, here's the issue. Once COVID came around, I realized just how sensitive time is. And what I ended up doing was I ended up speed railing my entire life into being what an adult that I thought that I was trying to become. For example, I stopped cursing, I stopped drinking, I stopped doing everything that all those rough edges that originally made me, that authenticity, I kind of got rid of. It went down to such details to clothes. At one point for an entire month of Ramadan, I wore a suit every single day because I thought that would bring me closer to maturity. Now, what happened during this time period? Well, nothing, actually. Some of my friends looked at me kind of crazy, but I really didn't give a fuck about what my friends thought. I kind of gave a fuck about what I thought. And I knew that when you're trying to do something different and you're trying to be a new you, it's going to be uncomfortable. This is where the problem starts. When you're learning in life, of course, there's going to be growing pains. But if the growing pain is from the character that is authentically you, is it really a growing pain, or are you growing away from who you really are? Now, at my heart, for those who know me, I am a bird. I have a lot of ghetto tendencies, but I don't actually participate in ghetto activity. I just ghetto authenticity. That's why I just call myself a bird. Listen, I spent a lot of my childhood at the Washington and Slauson swap meet. I always was outside riding my bike, kicking it with niggas. That was just me. I remember smoking for the first time off of Melrose with my homie Blank and just being able to be the kid I wanted to be. Now, mind you, that's a teenager. I always hate niggas who have to go back to high school to remember who they are. But let's fast forward this clock into college, because that's the conversation I want to have. That transition in from 20s into 30s is completely different than any other transition in your life, because in my 20s, it took all the nuances of all the rebellion and all my outspokenness of high school, and I carried it into my 20s, but then I also had to keep a job, and I had to manage relationships and manage friendships. Back in high school, your friendships are kind of given to you based off the socioeconomic of the region of your school. But in college, you kind of have to look for them a little harder, so that's what I did. I kicked it with Elijah, Tyrone. We did DDS, we did podcasts, we went thrifting. Everybody around me was into this, for lack of a better word, this subculture of just anti-society, if that makes sense. We knew that we had to have money, we knew we had to work, but we just knew we didn't want to take the route everyone else did. Now, this is when 2013 through 2018, I experienced for the first time in my life true organic happiness. What are you going to say right now, Muhammad? You're not happy? Of course, I do have happiness right now, but it's different because my happiness then was with no money. It was with no responsibilities. The women I met, it was all off of conversation. It wasn't where are you now? What do you have going on? It was people organically meeting one another based off of their nothingness. So what happens is when you get into your 30s, you have more responsibility, which I've mentioned a couple times, but also you find yourself trying to touch that level of joy you once had a decade ago. And it becomes a reality that you just simply can't do it anymore. And that's a pill that a lot of men probably have a hard time digesting. It's a frustration because you know the ear-to-ear smiles you had off of nothingness. You know freedom genuinely felt like, but when you get older, you still get a little bit of that freedom, but the responsibility becomes like this balance that you kind of have to manage on a daily basis. And this is what's different about me in this balancing game, because who I am, that rebellion, that little rebel, that little bird behavior that I had is organically in the fibers of my personality. personality. I can't run from it. I always knew enough to not be in the streets, but I didn't know enough to where I couldn't have a good time. There's a little bit of ignorance and joy, if that makes any sense. So anyways, I go all the way through my 20s with happiness, and now I enter my 30s, and now my happiness becomes this providing role, which is something that I put upon myself. You know, this is not, I'm not going to say that I didn't ask for this life. This is the life I asked for, and the actions I was participating in led me to where I am today. But in the same breath, that level of freedom that came from that joy and that independence or that lack of responsibility doesn't quite come the same to the joy today. Now, what makes me different than most other niggas? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'm a nigga from LA who always had a mouthpiece. I've always been able to talk. I've always been a really cool guy. People have liked me, men, women, it doesn't matter, dogs, babies. Everyone enjoyed my character, my personality. But when you start getting older, those types of characteristics almost become threatening to your overall household, and you have to learn how to manage that, lack of a better word, that trueness, that organicness that you once had in your 20s. You have to learn how to tone that down just due to those around you or the loved ones around you. You see, being outgoing and having a personality and talking to, for lack of a better words, talking to the bitches in your 20s is praised. It's like, this man is amazing. But that same trait, that same quality that I gained from talking to women was the same thing that led me to my first clients. But now I'm at a point where I don't know how to use that skill as well because I don't practice it, because guess what? I have responsibilities and I don't want to let any of my family members down. You see, flirting in your 30s, it can change the trajectory of your life. Now, flirting in your 20s is nothing more than a conversation. It's like a dust floating through the air, a paper bag going through the wind. But flirting in your 30s can substantially change the trajectory of where you go next and who you speak to next and all these other factors. So the question I pose in this word salad of thought is, where's the balance? When do I get into the point of my 30s to where I'm just happy for where I am and what I have going on? Now, I am happy for what I have going on, but I always find myself comparing it to my 20s happiness. At a certain point, you just have to let go. But for those who are social and have the capabilities of just communicating with people and still holding on to the qualities they had in their 20s, it becomes a very daunting task. It's a task that I myself cannot really even wrap my head around. You know, in 2015, my responsibilities was listening to Lover's Rage, The Barter 6. If you're reading this is too late. All of those mixtapes were the soundtracks to some of my most outstanding nights, whether it was romantically or just platonically. But now when I listen to those tapes, I find myself reminiscing and wondering, did I do everything right? Now, if you've always been an upstanding guy and you never really was outside, you're probably looking at this video and saying, I don't get what the big deal is. If you were happy then, you should be happy now. But understand, if you weren't that person and you didn't, quote unquote, abide by all the rules, you look at age and growth a little different. Now, don't listen to me and say, oh, Mohammed, you scared to grow up? Not necessarily scared to grow up, but will I forget that happiness I had in my 20s? Is it possible that I will never see that person ever again? I was referring to myself. Is it possible that you can love wanting to grow up and be unk, which is the chapter of my life I'm fully embracing, but at the same time just miss when you was just Mo? That's the question I want to pose to you. If you were a cool guy in your 20s and you, for lack of a better word, was getting bitches back in the day, listen, put in the comment section what you think you would do, or tell me what separates your 20s from your 30s, and how did you let go the comparison of the happiness you had in your 20s as you enter your 30s? That's all I really have for you guys today of my daily rant. Hopefully, I'm trying to keep these things going. I'm gonna keep them edited, short, quick, in and out. But I have to get the thoughts that are in my head on mic, because this is my only form of therapy and hearing my thoughts. And without the internet, I don't really know where I would be today. So y'all stay happy, y'all stay optimistic, y'all stay beautiful, and Muhammad Cook is out. I'll catch you on the flip side.